Hola y bienvenido al podcast de Torres Hospitality, donde entrevistamos a los mejores perfiles del sector turístico global, tanto en español como en inglés, para conocer de primera mano las tendencias, noticias, opiniones y debates sobre la actualidad, el presente y el futuro de la industria alojativa y turística. Soy Pablo Torres. Puedes seguirme en mi web www.torresconsulting.co.uk, plataformas de podcast, YouTube y redes sociales. ¡Arrancamos!
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Torres Consulting Podcast, episode 112. Today with me is Sarah Dandashy, who is a travel personality in the industry. She is a best-selling author. She had a very popular podcast and 150,000 followers on Instagram. Sarah, hello, how are you?
Well, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. It's an honor to have you here on the show. So with the personality of the industry, like you with more than 20 years of experience in the industry, coming from the luxury hospitality, concierge, media, consulting advisor, you're everywhere, author also. So I like to, as I always do with the first question for guests of the show, to go through the milestones of your career.
Sure. So different milestones in my career. So first of all, I'd have to say finding myself in hospitality, first even getting into it. At that point, my cousin had worked in, he had actually gone to Lausanne. So he had been like professionally trained in hospitality, and he was working at the Four Seasons in Washington, DC. I was working at a restaurant, side job while I was going to school. And he was like, well, why work at that restaurant when you could work at the Four Seasons? And I was like, oh, 19 years old. I'm like, this is cool. I could get benefits. Sign me up. And I have to say, it was so wonderful having that opportunity right at the beginning, because they, and certainly at that time, Four Seasons had an excellent onboarding program. So I was a complete blank slate. So I was completely brought into the fold of hospitality and trained really, really well from the start. So that was number one of me just getting into hospitality in the hotel space. Number two big milestone was when I moved to Los Angeles. I was like, okay, well, I'm looking for a job. I guess I'll do hotels again. I don't know. I had more of an F&B background, and I applied for a bartender position. And the general manager was like, I think you'd make a good concierge. And I'm like, I'm 22 and just moved to LA, but I'm good with maps. I'm sure I can figure it out. So all of a sudden, I was literally gifted the position of being a concierge at a 5-star, 5-diamond property in the heart of Beverly Hills at the ripe age of 22. So that was another pivotal moment. Then about 10 years ago, I had done the whole luxury 5-star, 5-diamond hotel experience, properties. And it was kind of a twofold thing. So I started at more of a 4-star hotel. And I know that when I was interviewing there, they were like, why do you want to be here? You have such a background. Like, this seems like a step down. And I'm like, no, I want something with a little bit more of a relaxed atmosphere where I could have more of my personality. And because of that, it also gave me some freedom. I wasn't so exhausted. And then I was able to create Ask a Concierge. So I actually created my brand Ask a Concierge 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that was probably the third pivotal moment. And then the final pivotal moment was actually the pandemic. I was on the verge of leaving my property that I was working at. My brand had grown quite a bit, but I was scared to completely leave the hotel industry. But with the pandemic, as with many people, I found myself furloughed, and I was like, well, I'm not going to take a step backwards. I've grown it to this point. We're not doing that. We're going to go all in, even if it's in the middle of the pandemic. Let's go. So that is actually when I ended up leaving working at the front lines of travel, as far as at an actual concierge desk, and diving full into my company, Ask a Concierge, and then since wrote a book and do all sorts of fun things like TV segments, etc. So those are the 4 pivotal moments.
Okay, nicely compressed in 2 minutes. Brilliant. Thanks a lot. So for whomever wouldn't know what Ask a Concierge is, what do you do? Can you describe it?
Yeah. So basically, I mean, the best way to kind of describe Ask a Concierge is, I've built myself up into sort of being a somewhat media personality that supports the hospitality industry. I create travel content, inspiration, and share advice, like what I would normally do as a concierge for so many years, but I've now brought it to the digital realm. So creating videos, be it informative, inspirational, etc., for travel consumers. So continuing to share travel advice to travel consumers. And then on the other side, because of all of my years of experience, I was like, I'm sitting on a lot of knowledge. I can't just sit on this knowledge and not be able to share it. So then working with hospitality and other companies outside of the industry to help raise their hospitality standards. So that's kind of like the two realms in which I play in.
And then another leg of the stool there, it's your podcast, Say Yes to Travel. So what
Yes.
kind of content you have in your podcast?
So interesting, and this is kind of perfect timing. I am now shifting Say Yes to Travel, and the podcast is I would say maybe version 2.0, and it is now called Travel Redefined. And I will be launching actually in the middle of this summer, 2022. I've got a couple of podcasts under my belt, but I figured that it was sort of twofold. It was time for a rebranding of it. Also, we've been saying yes to travel for so long, and now we're in this different phase of the travel and hospitality industry. So I thought Travel Redefined would be a really good way to describe where we are now. And that's where I interview hospitality and travel professionals in different industries, seeing how they are maybe shifting what their businesses are doing and where they see the future of the travel and the hospitality business. So it's very much designed for hospitality and travel professionals, but also I think travel lovers can get something out of it as well too.
Okay, Hospitality Redefined, Hospitality from Within, which is your best-selling book, which I can see behind you.
Yes.
What about, yeah, see there, best-selling Amazon book. What's in there? What kind of content you?
What is in there? So I always knew I wanted to kind of, put together a book. And when it came to understanding and kind of putting my finger on things, I was like, this book makes sense for the transition in my career. I may not necessarily be at the hotel desk anymore, but I've learned so much and I've had incredible mentors. So what I wanted to do, and I think was able to do it pretty well, in the notion of hospitality from within, I wanted to create these sort of lessons and nuggets on how we as hospitality professionals can just tap into what it means to provide that genuine service. And maybe if you're new to the industry, it gives you a couple of pillars so that kind of guidepost and how you can deliver really good service. But then also for those of us that have been in the industry for a long time, we all know what it's like to get burnt out. And hopefully through reading it, and even if it's just pulling quotes from not only myself, but from other execs in the industry, reading stories from, amazing concierge from around the world, hopefully it reignites that passion for what we do. And I think really the whole thing with hospitality from within is not only is it about creating having genuine connections, creating real service, but creating those special magical moments for people and creating memories. We get to do really cool things. So that's what hospitality from within is about.
Nice one. The history of happiness that we're working.
Yes.
So you're coming from being a concierge, one of the first jobs you were saying, 4 seasons, when you were very, very young, and you're still involved with the Cleft Door. I follow you online. One of the first people I interviewed in the show was Borja Martin, which is the head of the Cleft Door in Spain.
Yes, exactly.
So in the era of apps and everyone has all the information on their mobile phones, what is still the added value of a concierge when you?
Oh my gosh. Hands down, it's the personalized human touch. Yes, I get it. You really want to have, it's easy to have something or answers at your fingertips, but it's the nuances. It's the problem solving. I'll use a very simple example. And I just happened to go to this place last night, which happened to do with one of my favorite concierge stories. So in Los Angeles, there is it's a members only club called the Magic Castle. You have to either be a magician or be somehow friends with a magician in this club. And they are the only ones that are allowed to come in, or you have to get an invite from one of them. So as a concierge, it wasn't uncommon that sometimes people were like, I've heard of this place. This is where the magic, the magic industry comes from. I want to go. So we would always reach out to our contacts to see if they could get an invitation. Then they have to get a dinner reservation. So I had these guests that actually asked me for a reservation, and it was around like Valentine's Day, something crazy. And they were completely booked up, understandably so. So I was like, well, I'm sorry, we can't do this. But what if we bring the Magic Castle to you? And they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, maybe we can do a private magic show in your suite. They're like, that's a great idea. So then I was able to interview all these magicians, put together a little bio on them, what they do, whether it's like, up close, close up magic, whether they do more theatrical, whatever it is, mentalist, and provided that to them. And we ended up setting that up. Now, that to me is a case in point of why you would need a concierge. Could you have Googled the Magic Castle? Sure. Could you have had maybe figured out some way to get a connection? Maybe that would have been tricky, but maybe. But to be able to call somebody who can not only reach out to their connections, but in this particular case, if option number 1 isn't available, you need somebody to provide you option number 2 or 3, and then you get to choose. So that is the importance of a concierge that no app can recreate.
So that would be, it's a great example, focus on the concierge world, but we've seen a lot of especially because of the pandemic, the digitalization of the industry, a lot of hotels are getting into more and more tech. Where is the right balance between use of the technology, which means less people facing customers and customer service?
Well, it's all about understanding what you can do via technology and communication. Great. And by the way, I live on my phone, obviously. So I'm not anti-apps. I'm not anti-technology. I need it. One of my favorite things that I can do is, if I'm staying at a hotel and I leave and I'm like, great, I didn't ask them to clean my room, that I can just press a button or request through the app and somebody can take care of it. I don't need to have that phone conversation. So it is this fine balance of what can you use technology to streamline simple things that maybe it's just a request. You don't need to necessarily have that conversation versus something that might be more in-depth and more nuanced. So that's where the balance is. But absolutely, whenever I speak to travelers, I'm always like, make sure that you download the hotel's app, because it makes things so much easier, especially to be able to communicate when you're out and about and you forgot something and you want to relay it. So it is a fine balance, but it's absolutely possible, and it's where we need to live.
Okay, good. Finding the right balance in there. Now, we've seen, because of the changes, because of the pandemic, there's a lot of travel for many hoteliers. A lot of people were made redundant or were furloughed. So yeah, focusing on the customer service, you have obviously great experience in there. What would be the top advice for a hotelier who's struggling now in terms of providing a good customer service?
I think the number one thing is to go ahead and put yourself in their shoes. Because don't get me wrong, I get it. There were definitely some days that I'm like, I have no desire to tell this person where the bathroom is. They seem annoying. I don't like the way they're dressed. I'm judging them before they even walk up to me. I'm human. We are human. Of course, we're trained that we want to be able to just, everything is butterflies and rainbows, but sometimes, some days are a little bit harder. So, but what I do is I think back as what if I had saved up for 3 months, a year, whatever it is, to go on this vacation. And I'm so excited. I make it to Hawaii. I make it to Barcelona. I make it wherever. And I'm really excited. And I go up there and I talk to somebody at the front desk and they greet me with an attitude. How horrible is that? And so I would remind myself of this, is that no matter what, you have to put yourself in their shoes, and you have no idea how long they've been planning for this trip. You have no idea, what it took for them to get there, maybe what they're going through, etc. And just by being kind and genuine will make all the difference in the world. And so when you really think about how you would want to be treated when you're on vacation, because most of us don't take enough vacations, you understand that, and that you look at it in a far different way. So I think that to me is really the driving force. And then once you understand that a little thing can go a really long way, I think everything else falls into place.
It's not a matter of investing extra money, or it's just, stuff is there. So it's about the attitude, really.
Yeah, it's 100% attitude and mindset. And I love that you bring that up about spending extra money, etc., because they're like, oh, well, amenities and this and that. And it's like, okay, wait a second. You actually don't have to spend a lot of money on extravagant amenities to wow a guest. It can be something as simple as remembering they love espresso martinis. So as soon as they check in, you send an espresso martini to the room. That's something that doesn't cost the hotel a lot, but it's very special. So, or even if it's maybe writing a note, or understanding that they're there for an anniversary, an engagement, a birthday, a simple note chocolate covered strawberries, I don't know, whatever it might be, something that just acknowledges it will go a very, very long way. And it really doesn't cost you much at all. And then this is what I really love about this. This is what I always share is then your guests become your advocates. And guess what? They're going to be taking a picture of that little gift that you sent them to the room, and they're going to be tagging the hotel, talking about how amazing it is. And all of a sudden, it's like the gift that keeps on giving. So never underestimate the power of doing something thoughtful. And doing something thoughtful does not have to be very pricey at all.
Okay, great advice. Two more questions I have for you. Focus on talent now. So we've seen the great resignation, especially in our industry. Lots of people leave in the industry. We don't know if they're coming back or not, but they're really needed. And every hotel now, well, airlines as well, cruise liners are struggling for staff. What can be done to get them back?
It's a couple of things can be done. I think, the big thing that we are seeing that a lot of companies have had to step up to the plate was how they were paying their employees. It's long been known that everybody in the hospitality and travel space have been pretty underpaid for what for what they do and compared to other industries. So I will say this, that a lot of companies are stepping up to the plate, that they are increasing what they're paying. So certainly becoming more competitive as far as what they're paying. The other thing is becoming more flexible. You can't hire somebody and ask them to be part-time and then be like, oh, we need you to work whenever and always be available. So understanding that you do have, if you want them to be flexible with you, you have to be flexible with them as well too. So understanding that people come to the table with maybe they can't work weekends because they have children, so become more flexible. It's no longer, an industry where it's like they have to be at your beck and call. You have to work together. And then giving them, really focusing on the work environment. What incentives are you giving them to necessarily want to be there? I mean, I remember the days of when it was like so amazing to work at a hotel because you could get super cheap rates or even stay at hotels for free. Well, that's not really the case anymore. And I'm sure that there have also been a lot of challenges as well for those working within the airline industry as well. So really re-examining what you are able to offer, what perks you are able to offer your employees to make them want to stay, something that they can actually understand, and then really creating that environment that's welcoming. Because if they feel welcomed, let's be honest, we all know this, that wherever you work, that is where aside from home, that's where you're spending the second largest amount of your time. It might even be, you might be spending more time at work than you are at home. Hopefully not, but that sometimes that is the case. So if you're going to be in that environment, or if you want somebody to be in that environment, create something that feels like a family. And if you have that family approach, they're going to be happy that they're there. And then guess what? They're going to tell their cousin, they're going to tell their friend, whoever else, somebody's graduating from college and they're looking for a new job, fresh out of school, whatever it might be. Now you've got also word of mouth from within, and they are encouraging others to come work for your company. So it really starts hospitality from within. It really starts from within, and that's how you're going to be able, right? And that, by the way, is also the other aspect of the book is like, what can we do, as business owners to create that environment that people want to work there? Because the more you do that, it's easy.
Which, I mean, as you say, it applies for both internal customers and external customers. So you provide a better service for your employees, they're going to be advocates also for future employees within their contacts. And the same way you were saying with customers, right? Like paying guests in this case, treat them well, and they also spread the word in social media. So,
Exactly. I always say your number one customer are your employees. I'm not the only one that says that. I know other companies say that, but I always stress that for those that don't think that way, oh my gosh, think that way. Because I've worked in companies that didn't really operate that way, and I've worked in others that did. And you can also see in people's resume, you know the businesses where there's a high turnover rate, and then you also look at the others, again, I was just at this, for example, at this place last night, and I'm talking to the bartenders there that have been there 10, 12, 15 years as a bartender. Wow. That says something for the company, so again, keep all of that in mind, that it doesn't necessarily have to be super glamorous, but it's like you have to give back and make them feel like they're part of something.
Okay, brilliant. Last question then. I always have the same last question to every guest of the podcast. which is, let's say someone who is 18, 19 is listening to the interview, and they are maybe considering joining the industry. So how will you sell it to that person to join?
Well, I would say what's really okay. The hospitality industry. I think a lot of it really comes down to you get the chance to help make memories for people. And it might be simple and it might be more complicated depending on what you're doing or your exact role. But no paycheck can really compete with that. To be able to know that maybe somebody 10, 20 years down the line is going to be at a dinner table and they're sharing about this amazing time that this concierge, like, arranged a private magic show in our room. They don't even have to remember your name, but you helped create a memory. And so I think, there's a lot of great things about it. It's the people that you meet. It's a highly interactive industry, and you get to meet all sorts of incredible people. It's incredible for networking as well as team building. The opportunities that come your way, you don't necessarily have to stay just in one city. If you want to move to different parts of the country or the world, if you have a job in hospitality, it is so easily transferable. So it's a great way to get started. And then again, just kind of coming back to it is like to have that chance to be able to make those memories is pretty special.
Absolutely, it is. So, Dandashy, thank you so much for all the insights. Instagram influencer, host, we said, the podcast, Hospitality Redefined.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Okay, brilliant book, Hospitality from Within, and founder of Ask a Concierge. Again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you as well. This is wonderful.
Thanks a lot.
That was all for now. Hope you found it useful. Remember that you have more information on our website www.torresconsulting.co.uk, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and Twitter. Stay well. Goodbye for now.